Three, two, one. Hello. I want to tell you about something that came to me this morning. I don't know if I'd call it paranormal. I don't know. It might be. It might not be. But it definitely gave me some validation, closure. I'm not sure which. To a haunting that occurred to me 55 years ago when I was 7 years old. And now you know my age. And I don't know why. It's just strange the way this happened. And for me, it meant a lot. I mean, somebody else might not understand how much, why it meant so much to me today to get this. Oh, God. This one. Right. I just made lasagna, probably got it all over myself. I wrote this, alright, this is what happened. First I'll tell you what happened in 1967. I wrote this down 10 or 12 years ago. And that's still a long time after 1967, but it's pretty fresh in my mind. There's really not much to the original story, though it is quite strange, unusual. But I could tell you off the top of my head what happened. But let's go back 10 or 12 years when I wrote this down. And, right, I made a video about this. I'll post a link to it. And at the bottom, a voice from a doomed aircraft, San Jose, California. And I just turned 7 because this morning I learned quite a bit about this. It came to me when I woke up where to look to find out things. And I did. And after all these years, I now have the answers that I was looking for. Now, I'm going to read this. It's really not a very long story, so bear with me. Let me wet my whistle. Oh, Lady Grey. Bigelow. Good Lord, I'm gonna need glasses. Old eyes. Alright, so this encounter story is one of a kind that finds its way outside of the box of broadly conventional paranormal understanding. My parents had moved from New Mexico to California. My father, a draftsman and mechanical and electrical engineer, had taken a better job with a large corporation. It also seems to me that he loved rambling about America. Yet regardless of his rambling ways, he always worked and was an even-handed, mild-tempered, sober, providing father. This story starts one particular day right after I'd gotten off the school bus and was walking by myself around the block to our home. We lived in something of the outer edge of the suburban sprawl of San Jose at that time. There is nobody else at all around me. And I can still picture this. I really can. Nobody else around me as I walked home. It wasn't a very long walk. And yes, they did let 7-year-olds on the bus back then and off the bus. And there was no traffic either. I rounded the corner to our street when I heard a man's voice calling to me. I still remember that voice too. Help us, help, please help us. The voice was very clear and very distinctly calling to me from the sky. I stood there gazing up at the direction of the voice, really perplexed at how this could be happening. Far up above me, set against the cloudless blue sky, streaked a jet. Just a silver sliver gleam in the sun, and with a straight white vapor trail etching its long white line across the vast blue field beyond. Dramatic writing. The voice was calling down, addressing me individually, and it was. There was no doubt about this, that he was addressing me somehow from the aircraft. I remember that the man's voice had a slight metallic electric quality, as if calling from an old intercom. I just could not understand how or why he was communicating with me, a 7-year-old boy. I put down originally 6, but now I know the dates. I found out this morning. I had just turned 7. A 7-year-old boy on the ground. But it continued on with an increasing urgency, desperately pleading, even desperately. Help us, please help us, help! I was feeling sorry for this man who was calling to me, but I was also feeling increasingly frustrated that he was increasingly and desperately pressing me to somehow help them or get help. Finally, I stood up looking. I was just looking at this like, and this guy's going on. It was so pathetic. With this man calling down to me for help. I was exasperated, and I said out loud, I'm sorry, I can't help you, I'm down here. I said that looking up at the sky. I'm sorry, I can't help you, I'm down here. I said that out loud. At that precise moment, the voice ceased its urgent plea. The jet continued to make its streak across the sky, and I walked home wondering what that was all about. I still recall getting home that day. We were one of the first on our block to get a color TV, and the TV was on. It was almost always on in our house back then. That kind of bugged me a bit. That's why I didn't watch TV for most of my adult life. I just didn't like TV. Not long at all after I got home, and I don't think it was maybe not even an hour later, a news flash came across the TV. Back when they did news flashes across the TV, a big console tube TV, a giant one, probably with a stereo built into it. My dad always got the best TV audio-visual equipment of the time. A news flash came across the TV. A jet, an Air Force jet, had just crashed in the mountains in our region of California. All crew were killed. I remember saying both pilots. This perplexed me then, and it still did today. The day I wrote this down, 10 or 12 years ago. I started writing all this stuff down years ago, and it took me a while to compile it. And I got to tell you, all right, this is where today comes in. I have looked, because that was one of the strangest things I've ever had happen to me. I mean, somebody says, well, you were 7, you're just a kid. What do people think that kids like hallucinate or something, I mean, I had a pretty clear mind then. And no, I wasn't smart to the ways of the world and technology, and history, and everything you learn if you live long enough in this life. But I knew that what was happening was really strange. And I knew that there was no way that I could think of that this guy was calling me from this aircraft that was way up there. It was just a cigar-shaped sliver of silver gleaming in the sun with a vapor trail. I'm like, how is he doing this? It was almost like he had a giant megaphone. In my head, this is what I thought, that they had a giant megaphone, like electric megaphone, strapped to the bottom of the aircraft, and he was calling to me from that. But I knew even then at that age that didn't make any sense. I got to tell you, it was one man's voice that was calling me. It wasn't more than one. I got to tell you that it was very emotional. I really felt sorry for this person. There's been more than once I've heard spirits in distress. And I'll tell you what, you've heard some sad things in your life. When you hear it coming through the spirit world, it's not filtered through ears, mouth, flesh. It comes across really strong, really raw. I've heard spirits cry. I've heard them in distress. Then there was this man, I've heard him pleading for help more than once. I've heard him in raging anger, profanity laced. It comes through, their emotion comes through a lot more powerful than what you get on this earth. It comes through. It's like comparing a glass of beer to a glass of whiskey. It comes through really strong. The spirits. And if the man was, this went on for, 3 or 4 minutes until I said, I can't help you. I'm down here. And I don't know, it wouldn't surprise me if I said a prayer for him, because I was a Christian at age 7. I hope I did. I will tonight for sure. All right, so what happened today? Today I woke up. I didn't have to work today. And the first thing I thought when I woke up, obviously I'm here, but when I woke up, I should say, I don't know why, because I have Google searched for anything to substantiate this strange story I just told you and read to you about an Air Force or jet that crashed in our area of San Jose, California, in that region. I couldn't find anything. I gave up looking years ago. And for some reason, when I woke up today, I just rolled over and picked up my cell phone, and it said, search again. Search for military aircraft accidents in the 1960s, and narrow it down. And I don't know why I wasn't thinking about it. I just had woken up, and I was led to this, honestly. I feel I was. And I found it. Indeed, on April 5th, 1967, an aircraft, I think it was an A3, I should have written it down here, but had departed from NAS, that's Naval Air Station, Miramar. Here's a picture of that, where they departed from. You can see that's just north of San Diego, very southern California. And first, here's a picture of that aircraft, all right? This is the aircraft that these people were flying. I found out who it was and what their fate was. That today I found out. And it completely validated my experience to me. And also answered a few questions on some things. So that's what the aircraft looked like. Back to where they took off from. This is their air base. Some pictures of that. Where it's at, what it looked like. It's still there. Oh, that's good tea. And they were headed to NAS, Naval Air Station, not Whitby, whatever. Here it is. I should have written this down. But this is where they were headed. That's up north of Seattle, all the way up the west coast of the United States. I think, right north of Seattle, as you can see. And that's where they were headed. There were actually four people in that aircraft. There was a pilot. There was a pilot trainer, the same rank. And these two guys were, flying the plane. Then there was a crewman involved that worked the plane. I don't know what his job was actually, but he was probably a lower ranking person enlisted. Then there was another lieutenant colonel who was just flying along for who knows what, just wanted to maybe go up there and see what that air base looked like, or who knows what. He was unlucky enough, he climbed aboard that airplane that day, that jet. So here's the route they were going on, route, I usually say route. All right. Anyway, they were going from San Diego, here's that picture of that, all the way up the west coast, as you can see, to that Naval Air Base up there north of Seattle. That was their intent that day, and that, routine training flight, pretty much. The Vietnam War was going on then. So you can see that's what they were planning to do. Picture off. I wanted to do this just to put things in perspective. Here's a picture of me pretty much the year that this took place, all right? That's me when all this happened. And Yeah, cute. So that's what I looked like when this event took place. All right. I found out today about this air crash, and it said that this plane on April 5th with these 4 men aboard had crashed into Eagle Point in what's called the Warren Mountains. About 450 miles north of where I was living in San Jose at the time. And here's a picture of that, their route and their crash, and also a picture of Eagle Point, not Eagle Mountain, Eagle Point, I believe. And here's a picture of their route and that place where they crashed. And reading the very brief, it was really very hard to find anything on this event. I was lucky just to find this, and it actually wasn't available on Google until a few years ago. I traced the sources. There's an association of old pilots that used to fly this aircraft they were in, and they've got a website, and they try to get all the history together, and they actually published these accounts of this crash. So I think 2016, all right, which was well after when I wrote all this down. So there's that. And enough on the pictures. What's it mean to me? It means a lot. I've been searching for the answers for this sporadically since it happened a long time ago, because I know what I heard, and I know how that man sounded. He sounded pathetic, desperate, 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 desperate to me to get help. Why did this happen? You know, I'm going to do another Why Do Ghosts Wear Clothes, but I think, and I'll get into the reasons why in that video when I get to it. But these people, from what I gathered, when they got to this place, Eagle Point, it was from the accident report. It was cloudy, and the whole thing was in 4 to 6 feet of snow. So it was just one big whiteout, and communications were bad that day, I read. I don't think these people in this jet even knew until they hit that mountain. I think they thought things were going along all right because they couldn't see a thing. And then suddenly they slammed into this mountain at however fast that jet was going. It said that the aircraft disintegrated. I also read that all 4 of their bodies were found at the crash site pretty quick. The Air Force knew pretty quick they lost a plane when it failed to answer some kind of protocol, and they sent a search and rescue team out, and they found it. I think that maybe one of the spirits, time stops, and I'm just speculating here, all right? It's from the Bible. I'm speculating. I don't want to ever say anything that takes away from the Bible, but there are some things with this paranormal stuff that the Bible doesn't directly address. And I did cover that Jesus and his disciples did not deny the presence of ghosts. And they didn't call ghosts evil spirits, demonic, or even familiar spirits, but ghosts, former deceased people. All right, but it doesn't really go into detail about these things, which makes it such a curiosity to so many people, and because we all know we're headed there. I think this person died instantly, and really had their whole life ahead of them. Really didn't plan on dying that day. Probably was enjoying the ride. Honestly, I've flown a military aircraft quite a bit, and you respect that it's a dangerous job, but you also kind of, like a kid, enjoy the ride, usually, honestly. And then bang, they're dead instantly, in a flash. And that's how they said the aircraft disintegrated. So he's not going to stay at the crash site. It's too horrible, the reality. So it's going to go back to when it was alive. And because I had problems with the time lapse here. You know, I heard this, and it was about an hour later that the news flash came on about the aircraft that crashed. Come on, puppy. My dog has a horrible time with hot spots, licking himself raw. I'm going to have to take him to the vets. I've tried everything. Sorry, he's behind me doing this. I think this person went back, spirit went back in the aircraft and just kept reliving before its life ended. And I can't explain how that happens. But, you know, people say they've seen ghost ships, and you see people wearing the clothes and uniforms of their time before they died, when they died. Sometimes in their vehicles, possibly. Horse and buggy, trains. Well, who knows? You know, it was going back to the time, I think, before it died, knowing what was coming, reliving, knowing now what was going to happen. And I don't know, it saw me, maybe knew me as somebody that knows God. I hope that's it. And was calling to me to help. Unfortunately, at that age, I don't know, I just was perplexed. I didn't know how he was doing this. I knew for a fact that he was communicating to me, and I could hear him very clearly. And it sounded like somebody coming over an electric intercom, you know, metallic, but very clear. And the poor guy sounded so desperate. I mean, panicked, pleading, despair, and panic. Increasing. It just kept getting more and more and more until I said, I can't help you. I'm down here. So, you know, I heard a man calling to me for help at that trailer I lived in. I told the story of that on the 2 trailer hauntings. Not but maybe 5 years ago. I swear it sounded the same. Help me. Please help me, sir, help. Get help. It was the same thing. Maybe this poor man's spirit needs some help crossing over. So I'm going to pray tonight for that. I don't understand why these things happen. I really don't understand it all. And I'm getting old. I'll be a spirit before I know it. So will you. I don't know why these things happen, but I'm definitely going to pray for this. And I'm going to give them a little tribute here. I'm going to put up the news at the end, the clips where I got this information from. One's a really old newspaper clipping that's hard to read, scanned, and you can read it if you really try. And the other one was information, actually where I got this. The only place there's any information on this was actually posted not too long ago on Wikipedia, where somebody was putting together information, this association for this old warbird that first saw service in 1949 right up to 1991, something like that. Amazing, isn't it? Really old jet. And it wasn't the jet that malfunctioned, it just visibility, who knows, they slammed into a mountain, they didn't even know it was there, I don't think. So, all right. In my 20 years in the Army, I've buried a lot of servicemen, and still am. Appears to be so. I've done a lot of military funerals when I was in the military. All right, here we go. I'm gonna remake it. All right. Well, they died the line of service, so there's a proper send-off to these 4 men. God bless them and their families. It's been a long time. I hope this gives some closure. It did me. And if there's any of the other spirits that are still trapped in this, may they move on to the light. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Thank you for your service and sacrifice. All right. Now I'll end this, and I'll put up the news and the information I got online about this. Thank you. God bless.